What's good, KFS community? We are back once again. Casual Friday live, locked in with you on the Knicks Film School channel. Like this video if you love what you're hearing. Comment, subscribe, tell a friend to tell a friend. Share it with all your Knicks fans because you know we getting it popping on this network right now. And I am Jeff Johnson, and I'm here with the film God himself, the maestro of the tape, DJ Zullo. Mr. Zullo, how you feeling today?
Yo, I gotta be honest, I haven't finished my first cup of coffee this morning, but that intro has got me hyped up. So I can just put the cup away. I don't need it now. You got me going.
Yes,
You
sir.
got me popping. Let's do this, man. I'm excited to join this venture with you and break down our team. Let's do it.
Yes, sir. Casual Friday live. We're talking about everything that's happened from the past week and what's going to happen in the future. Don't worry, DJ, we don't need no coffee. I'm going to provide all the energetic caffeine you need, all right? Because this is Monday Morning Knicks. What the better time to talk about the Knicks than first thing in the morning? It's way better after a win. I say that. It is a little bit better after a win, but the NBA is back. It's already getting ridiculous, and I love it. So let's get into it. First, I want to know, we have a little tradition here. We talk about the vibes on Casual Friday. So I need to know what the vibes are looking like for you, DJ, as regards to this team. What are the vibes like?
Man, they're still I've been excited. The Boston game didn't damper that excitement because I'm still trying to learn, trying to gauge what this team is going to be. So I'm still excited. I'm still looking forward to just observing like you are and trying to figure out like what this team can be, how they grow, how they can reach their ultimate ceiling. So that game on opening night, it left a lot to be desired. However, it was a sort of game it was like a perfect storm in terms of like a loss at a team that had a lot of continuity in Boston. That's a great team. And then a team like the Knicks that are still trying to figure it out. So I'm still excited, still trying to learn, trying to figure it out. But I still got my excitement at a 10 out of 10 right now.
I hear that. Yeah, man. My vibes are completely measured because we're going to talk about it a little bit later when we get into it, but after what I saw, nothing really shocked me. I mean, the Celtics performance just felt generational, but they lost the opener last year to the Celtics too, right? I think if I'm not mistaken, I feel like they lost it to the Celtics. Unfortunately, this is our tradition. Right now, it's the Knicks and the Celtics, and something annoying happens for either one of the fan bases and whatnot. But despite that, I think I saw a lot of things that were encouraging, or enough things I should say. And it's 1 of 81. And if losing this first game means that you win a lot more going down the line, then I'll take that. It can't get too high, can't get too low. Of course, I'd be on here talking all types of shit if they smacked them the way Boston smacked the Knicks. But, either way, you do got to be measured, and I'm still super confident. Let's get into some of the news that's going down with the Knicks. First off, that in-season tournament new court just dropped. DJ, did you get a chance to see it?
I did, yeah. I think they improved over last year. I'm a traditionalist in the sense of I like the Knicks logo at center court, and they have that in there. And I just think the city landscape along one of the sidelines looked really cool. It sort of had the same theme, but they've just enhanced it a little bit, a few subtle changes. I think it's better than last year's, which I wasn't too much of a fan of. So overall improvement. Again, the city, the skyline, anytime you can infuse that into any sort of New York Knicks or any New York product, I think you're doing a good job. So shout out there. And listen, I'll have better vibes, better feeling if the Knicks perform well on that court. But overall improvement over last year. I just didn't think last year's was up the par. This year, I think they stepped it up a little bit. I got to say. What about you?
Oh yeah. So I'll get into my fashion bag, my art aesthetic bag real quick. This year is way more muted of an orange tone than last year. I enjoy the silhouettes surrounding the court. You see it's way more geometrical. You see the circle in the middle. You have the OG, well, really not the OG, but like our classic Knicks logo as of now with the triangle and the Knicks title on it. I like that they did incorporate the skyline as well. You know, that's a change from the one before. And I think the other thing about it that I do like is that it's not as distracting, because the first NBA Cup court, it had the Kith New York Knicks 3D aligned New York in the middle. And that is a logo that it looks better on TV than it does in person. Like it was made to be on camera, which is why when you see those jerseys in pictures, they look fire. Then when you see them, it's a little jarring in person. And I could only imagine what that's like for the players on the court. So anything that doesn't overly distract. And I do like the accentuation of the orange, because I don't think we do enough with the orange in the Knicks whole fashion scheme with the jerseys and with everything that we do. So it does give a lot of the Syracuse to it. So I do like that. I also love the fact that we're finally calling this the NBA Cup and not the NBA in-season tournament. I know how the NBA gets down. I knew once the bag came through, then we were going to brand this appropriately. I said it last year when they were calling it the in-season tournament. I knew they're just waiting for somebody to sponsor it so that they can officially call it the NBA Cup. If you're going to adopt the soccer model, you got to go full football. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I'm glad that they're doing it. I think a lot of the courts are going to look different now that the initial first year one experiment is out of the way. So that's cool. And in personnel news, it seems like the Knicks may have their eyes on another sharp shooter, Matt Ryan. Shams had reported 45% shooting from 3 in 28 games for the Pelicans last season. He's a free agent, and he's somebody who's on the Knicks radar. And of course, you got to get with this second apron machinations. You can only carry 12 players for 14 consecutive days until you need to get to 14 players. So I think you're going to see the Knicks do a lot of roster dark art sorcery in order to stay under the second apron and have the most cost effective year that they can have. So DJ, just from the basketball point of view, what do you think Matt Ryan could do on this team?
Well, he's got positional size. Yeah, if they could figure it out to bring him in. Positional size, 6'6", 6'7". You talked about the shooting, elite shooter in terms of the efficiency, bring some movement capability so he can sort of bend your defense, even if he's not actually catching the ball. If he can just keep the ball moving, it keeps the defense on edge. You know, the Knicks don't have as many good shooters as they have on the team currently. They really don't have a guy that you're worried about flying off a screen and running into an open three. So that is a need in that regard. And they need NBA quality bodies that can be your 9th, 10th, 11th man right now. They really are limited at this point. You know, if you look at some of the impact metrics, they're not too kind to Matt Ryan. But despite that, when you're a 40% shooter and you have good wing size, I think you deserve a job in the NBA. And for the Knicks, where they are right now, he can probably be useful. Again, a guy that you're probably not going to want in your 8-man or 9-man rotation, but if you're going to need a body to play in a big game, he can make a couple of threes and sort of like keep it moving, and just hope that he can hold up enough on the defensive end at 6'6" to not kill you on that end. So where they are right now, he's certainly a viable piece. The shooting's real. You worry about like some of the other stuff, like the playmaking and the defense. But for what the role he would likely have with the Knicks, those things probably wouldn't be that big of a deal anyway.
DJ, he sounds like a taller Shamet.
A little bit, yeah. Yeah, Shamet is like, he's interesting. Shamet, we saw that in the preseason where he's really, and Tibbs talked about that. The pace he plays with is really different than what the starters play with, and it's a quickness that the Knicks starters don't have. So when Shamet was in the game in the preseason, it really showed his ability to run into a DHO and just keep the ball moving. If he doesn't have the shot, it's a quick decision, a 0.5 second decision to move it or shoot it. So the Knicks need that. I don't know if Matt Ryan necessarily brings that level of, tertiary playmaking, but as a shooter, he certainly brings the things that you were hoping you're going to get from Shamet.
Yeah, and I do think that with the way the game has evolved and how the emphasis, and some may argue overemphasis, on 3-point shooting goes, you have to have that weapon in your arsenal, and you can't have too many 3-point shooters, especially somebody who, if the game is going left and you just got to get extra bodies in there, you want to have somebody who can shoot 40% from the three, because more than likely your calculus is going to be that you're going to take threes to try to get back in the game, or just to even keep the defenses honest now. I think at this point, just looking around as the league has started up again, I understand now why the narrative around the Knicks is that they have a thin bench, because I'm looking at some of these benches and I'm like, damn, they got pros, bro. Like, they have a lot of pros, like a lot of the shuffling around that's happened because of the whole apron machinations that they have to make.
Yep.
A lot of good pros have ended up on these teams, and across from the Wizards to the Warriors. They have people who are names. They have names on their benches, and people who can get you buckets, who can give you NBA minutes. So I think the Knicks are thin now. I think they are younger with the rookies that they have too.
Right.
So you don't have as many, pre-cat trade. They had an abundance of people off the bench who was going to contribute valuable time. But now it's like, you got to manufacture it a bit. Now you got to hope that you hit on one of the flyers that you took in the draft, and people that you put on that they can significantly contribute.
Yeah, it's a good point. And we're gonna talk about the Pacers. And Ben Shepherd was a playoff performer last year, and he's not even in their rotation right now. And that just speaks to the depth of that team. And we saw Boston, how deep they can go. It's a good point. There's so many teams that can go competently 10 deep, and the Knicks just aren't at that stage right now. Maybe they get there with health, and Achua comes back, and maybe one of the rookies really pops to where they're in the 9-man rotation. So it's not to say the Knicks can't get there. They're not there now, but you don't necessarily have to be there game 2 or game 10. You have to be there, towards the end of the season when injuries start cropping up, and you need to have that depth really play a part of it. And even the playoffs, I think depth is still, we saw last year, injuries happen, and you need to be able to have NBA quality rotation players to sort of fill in when they need to. So I think you make a good point. I mean, even like, Tim Hardaway Jr., he's playing for Detroit. He's a competent NBA good shooter. That is, a guy you have to account for. There's even bad teams have NBA quality talent. And, I don't know, to be quite frank, if Matt Ryan is at that level, because I just have a lot of concerns about the defensive end, because I think it's not enough anymore to be a great shooter that has limited playmaking ability. You need to be able to hold up. And we see this with, like, how many times the Knicks tried to go at Hauser in game 1. And I can't tell you, I mean, it was McBride trying to go through him. Hauser walled him up. OG Anunoby 3 or 4 times tried to go through him. He walled him up. So you have to be able to defend on that end. That's the question, that if Matt Ryan is to be a guy the Knicks bring in, like, how can he defend? Because teams are so good offensively to target the weak point. Boston was they're like the poster team for doing that. But even your average NBA team is going to try to, they're going to target you and try to put you in the blender. So we'll see how he would play out if that does come about. But you have to play both ends now. That's sort of a prerequisite in this day and age.
This is Casual Fridays Live, y'all. Casual Friday Live. Jeff J, DJ, on the ones, on the twos, talking with you about Knicks basketball on a beautiful Friday morning, a home opener Friday morning. And as the Knicks turn the page from Boston, getting ready for Indiana. But, good thing about books, DJ, is you can go back. You can flip in between pages and try to see if there was something that you missed, or maybe with a new perspective, you gain a new insight into the pages that you've read before. So let's go back to that book on Tuesday.
One more time,
just to close it, because we talk about the weekend review here, and as the season starts up, we'll have more games to talk about that happened previously in the week. But unfortunately, this was the only game we could talk about.
Right.
I've seen the whole spectrum of ranges of panic and regret and optimism. I've seen it all on the side. What did you take away as a major concern in the game? And I'll start with that. What did you think was like the major concern? Like the one takeaway where you're like, yeah, they're going to have to work on this.
Yeah. So I think the major concern is you can't hide the fact that the Knicks have to go through Boston if they're going to get to a finals. And I think when you have two guys on your team on the defensive end that are below average defenders in Brunson and Karl-Anthony Towns, it is really challenging against that particular team to defend at a high level because there's just nowhere to hide them. You know, when they play the Pacers, you can put Brunson on Nembhard and just feel confident that you're not going to get completely cooked in that matchup. Against Boston, it was a relentless targeting of both Towns and Brunson that I don't think the Knicks have the personnel to necessarily make huge adjustments in terms of their schematic things. I think there were a lot of execution issues, which I think will get cleaned up. But in terms of the personnel, you are limited in terms of when you have Towns and when you have Brunson and you have a team like Boston who is so surgical in how they go about their business, it makes it very difficult. So this concern, and this is, I guess, the glass half full perspective, is that I don't think this applies to really any other team in the NBA to this degree. This is a Boston issue, which, yes, they're going to have to figure out, but you have plenty of time. I don't know if they play. It might be a couple of months before they play again. I think there's a pretty wide gap between the next time they play the Celtics. And if it's the playoffs, we're talking several months.
Right.
So there's plenty of time here to sort of build in schematic changes and answers to what Boston is doing. But in terms of the Boston matchup, it was a punch in the mouth. And I think a message sent from the Celtics saying, not only are we a tier above, but that gap between our tier and your tier is wider than you thought coming into the season. And I think that's a fair way of looking at it. But the Knicks do have some time now to try to bridge that gap a little bit, if not close it completely.
Yeah, for sure, man. You know what I equated that game to? There was this old, back in the day, role-playing game called Chrono Trigger. And it was from the same company, Square Enix, that made Final Fantasy. Mm-hmm. And this game concerned time travel. So you assemble a group of fighters from the past, the present, and the future in order to defeat the final boss. The ill thing about that game was it had maximum replay value because you could end the game at different points in time. And depending on when you ended the game was when you got a different ending. So there were multiple endings. There was a way to go to fight the final boss in the beginning of the game. You had to find like a hidden portal that was in a trash can or something. I felt like the Knicks went to the final boss way too early in the season. They opened the wrong portal and you had to face the final boss on day one. I would have loved to have a tune-up before going up against Boston, right? And you see what happened to the Wizards last night. They were with them for like a quarter, like the Celtics calmed down from 3, but they still ended up destroying the Wizards. This is what I thought happened with the Knicks and the Celtics, where they just faced that final boss, that team that was ready. The other thing is, I haven't seen a team try to and execute a statement game against the Knicks since the Heatles exposed Jeremy Lin.
Oof. Yeah,
and put a nail in the coffin of insanity for good. Had him so shook that he would not play in the playoffs because his knee was hurting and he couldn't give the team even one game, and he had to he focused on the bag. That man went home and said, I'm going to wait this out and sign a contract because I'm not trying to see those guys ever again in my life. That was probably one of the biggest statement games I've seen in my Knicks fandom against the Knicks. This one felt just like it. USA Basketball opened Pandora's box and they released demons onto the NBA because these dudes are upset. These dudes are making a point. There was no ring night hangover. I thought they would be partying, chilling, and the Knicks would be able to steamroll them. the opposite happened. So that's why for me, I don't really panic about it. I don't take solace. I do think that the defense has to be cleaned up. I'm of the mindset, when I was growing up, you didn't really switch. You got cooked and then you switched then. Right. Like if you got scored on a bunch of times, it's like, all right, let me guard him. And that's what it was. Right. That's what it was. Then with switching, now if you're super switchable, to me in that game, I would have rather seen what would have happened if you switched everything. Switch, no drop. At that point, they're literally making history against you. What do you have to lose, right? But those, like what I said just now, they made history. They're not going to shoot like that again. If they do, then we might as well chalk up this season and just simulate it to the end, because no one is going to beat them. They took 60 plus threes. They hit 29 of 48 before they missed 13 straight trying to get the record. So if they're shooting over 50% from three, you're not on that volume, you're not beating a lot of those teams. So I do think, and I agree with you, the defense was a cause for alarm, but I do think it's something that's able to be tweaked. What's one thing in this game that you found encouraging?
Well, I think on offense, the Celtics made it really challenging, because you go into the season, your assumption is the Brunson Cat pick and roll, specifically the pick and pop game, is going to be the hallmark of your offense. But because Boston puts Drew on the Cat, they nullify that action, because if you run that, Celtics are going to switch, as we just alluded to switching, and then you basically mitigate any advantage the Knicks would have gained out of that. So you go into the game, and I think there was maybe one pick and pop Cat Brunson pick and roll the entire game. So that is like how you build your offense, and that is taken away right off the bat. With that said, the Knicks still had a relatively strong offensive outing. I think that was based on, Brunson being great within the arc. And part of that is also Celtics just not helping much off of the Knicks shooters and allowing Brunson to at least get to where he wants to go, and figure it's a math game. We'll trade his 2 for our 3. Obviously, Celtics are going to win more of those than they're going to lose. But I thought the sets the Knicks ran, especially in the second half, a lot of pistol, a lot of zoom action involving Kat, Mikal, and Jalen to try to get your 3 best players into 3-man actions. I think more of that would be really beneficial to where they want to go. Even if the pick and pop is going to be where you start with, that when you can involve your 3 best players into actions, I think you're in good shape. And the Knicks got Bridges 3 out of the right corner out of one of those. I mean, you can get good things using not only the passing ability of Towns, but the threat of the shot and the drive. Like those 3 aspects of his game, you could do more as a playmaker with him than you ever would with Hartenstein and of course, Mitch, or any of the bigs that would have been there last year. So there were signs that the playbook is becoming more diverse to try to enhance what they bring. It's just that the Celtics are just so equipped to be able to nullify your best action that it was tough. I think when we get into the Pacers, I don't think the Pacers are going to start their center onto Josh Hart. I think it's going to be Turner on Cat, and you can really then see how that pick and pop game can really flourish. But in general, I thought the offense, especially for a team with so many new pieces, was a positive coming out of that game.
Yeah, I did like the offense. It's just they just didn't hit enough threes. They gave up too many threes, and when you see the point differential between the fact that they hit more threes than the Knicks took, once again, in this era, that's an issue. That's an issue. If you at one point are shooting better from the field than the Celtics, but they just hit a whole bunch of more threes, and now you're down 20 plus, it's mind-boggling. That's why I said that's one of the most absurd shooting performances from a team that I've ever seen. I think the Harden-Morey Rockets probably put on something like that before, but similar. But this one was just, especially on day one, you're coming out the gate like that?
Play one. It was, and this is where, and I'll just quickly, the surgical precision of the Celtics, they run an action for Drew to basically get a back cut down the lane. Cat's in a drop. He's got to come over and sort of like protect the basket. So he's now in a deeper drop. That triggers Horford, who's on the left wing at this point, to run a screen and roll with Tatum. And because Cat's now worried about Drew back cutting, he's in a deeper drop. So Tatum gets off that screen, Bridges gets hung up, and it's a wide open, basically a practice shot right off the jump, literally. And then that to me is like the one thing you want to prevent, a rhythm shooter getting that first look wide open. I don't fault the Knicks as much as like that is just damn good play design and just a heck of a coach and obviously a heck of a shooter in Tatum. So you tip your hat a little bit in terms of like, where they are and where the Knicks are.
I saw that first three and it's my initial reaction was, all right, yeah, he got that. It was wide open. He's going to hit those. They'll tighten it up. That ain't nothing. They'll be all right. And then 85,000 threes later, we weren't all right. And I do think it's just a measure of everything. But when everything goes wrong and everything on the other side goes right for a team, sometimes you do got to tip your cap. Yeah. They were running beautiful offense to the point where I couldn't get mad at certain points because they exploited everything. And then once they saw you hedge too far one side, or you bit on a pass fake, pass, open three, bang. Every single time they were operating like a well-oiled machine. It was straight textbook, right? So a lot of that I couldn't be mad at, and the Knicks dropped 109 point shot over 50% from the field. They just gave up way too many threes. And that was really that. This is one thing I definitely wanted to talk to you about, DJ, because, the talk has been the talk. Do you think Bridges' jumper is really this serious of a concern on day 2?
I would say it's a concern because I think it's clear that he has raised his set point like a full basketball higher than it was last year. So whenever you do that, the only way to compensate the poor energy transfer that you're now adding into your shot is typically if you have a lower set point, your energy transfer, and think about DiVincenzo, who's like elite at this. You're from your legs to your release point is like one motion. It's clean. You're getting a ton of power from your lower body. It's flowing right through your shooting hand, and it's clean. And then you can have that's why DiVincenzo can shoot out to 28 feet comfortably. When you raise your set point, the higher it goes, the more you need to have that two motion aspect so that when you get to your set point, ball's now got to go back to go forward because you basically have to compensate with upper body strength. That's a lot of variability you've now added into your shot, a lot of things that can go wrong. There have been plenty of shooters that have gotten away with it, classically like Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, Kevin Durant to an extent, like Luka to a degree. Two motion shooters can get away with it. But we've seen this with like certain guys, LeBron and Luka, they can go through stretches where like the shot just looks off and it's hard to recalibrate it because there's a lot going on. So I think it's never a good thing, generally speaking, to add more variance to your shooting form. I think a cleaner form, one motion is probably for most players where you want to go. So, and usually that when you make a change, you're sort of like changing to be more efficient, not less efficient. And that's what Bridges has done. He's changed to be less efficient with his energy transfer. That doesn't mean you can't perform well with it. It just means
DJ, you're on mute. I think you're on mute.
Check 1, 2.
No, I still can't hear you. I don't know if that's. And hold that thought because you were cooking.
Yeah,
you were definitely cooking.
All right, dirty answer. You hearing me?
Maybe it's me. Oh, it must be me. My bad. For some reason, I cannot hear you. Give me 1 second.
Okay. Yeah, take your time. I had a film session with KFS the other day, and we had some logistical things. These things pop up every now and then.
Go ahead, DJ.
You got me now?
Wow. Okay. Hold on.
Take your time.
I'm gonna have to hack this one. Y'all can hear me though, right?
I hear you.
Y'all can hear me?
Yeah, I got you good.
All right. I just switched it because I don't know what the hell happened to my board just now, but
you got me now?
I'm sorry, y'all. I know he was cooking, but it sounded like silent movie theater over here. So go ahead, DJ.
Okay. Yeah, well, basically, it's all good. So basically what he has done, he's added more variance to his form. Typically, what I was saying is when you make changes, most players want to become more efficient. he's gone the other way. He's become less efficient with his shooting motion. That is not a guarantee that it's going to result in worse shooting. It's going to just be a little more challenging for him to be consistent with that motion. So that is the concern that I have, is like, all right, he might have good results out of it over a game to game, but how consistent is he going to be? I will say, when he's been shooting in the mid range and when he's been shooting off movement, it has looked more fluid. It has looked better. So I think that gives you a little more, I think, positivity that he can work through this. It's when he's been sort of wide open and you can almost see him sort of think through the form and the shooting motion when he's got a lot of time to sort of process it. When he hasn't had that time and he just had to let it go, that's when I think the shot has looked better. So I have concerns. I'm just not ready to panic yet, because I think you have to, in the end, trust the players and his developmental team and the Knicks coaches that they're doing the right thing. But I do think that you typically don't see it done in this manner to be less efficient with your shooting form. And that's where I think the concern comes from.
Did you ever use the shooting machine? It's like the old school shooting machine where you had the basketball here and you had to push it up, and it was like teaching you a form. That's like basketball camp.
Well, I've used like the strap thing that almost like kind of locks you into your elbow to your. So it's similar, I think, the idea that what you're talking about.
It was like an ancient machine. It had the basketball, and then you pushed it up for your form and whatnot. I'm like, damn, we got to get Mikal on the machine. We got to bring back the recipes and get him on the machine. So here's the thing for me, and shout out to James Edwards. He wrote a article in The Atlantic about Mikal Bridges' shooting form. I don't have a problem. I don't have a large problem with form as long as it's fluid. Because to your point about the energy transfer and the fluidity of it all, once you have a pause in your shot, you're losing that energy. If you're bringing it back, like even to hear you talk about it, it does make sense, because if you're raising it up, the minute you bend your knees and you jump into the air, energy is going from your feet through your body, through your arms. And when you hang, it's gone already. So now you have to generate it more. In fact, I feel like dudes, like when I watch Myles Garrett hoop, they need to shoot like that because they're too strong. So they have all the energy in their arms. So like they could probably get away with it if you're like a Derrick Henry type, or like, the bodybuilders who be hooping,
sure,
or the football players that be hooping, where they're not built for basketball. They're just built like tanks, and they just have a lot of upper body strength. So you could get away with that if you're
LeBron's
just an arm shooter.
Well, LeBron's like he's an upper body shooter. If you watch LeBron shoot, there's almost no transfer from his lower body to his release point. It's a strict two motion release, and it's like all upper body. 6'8", 250 pounds, he can get away with it, to your point.
And then LeBron also figured out that when he looks at the ball, he transfers energy from the dribble to his body, and then he's able to hit the three.
Right, that too.
I swear I'd be screaming on the court the minute I see him look at the ball. Yo, it's going up. Please don't let him take the three. We've seen this too much. He can't keep getting away with it. But I think in the second half, man, Bridges looked way more fluid. And I think it's because he stopped thinking about it. Like, you've been around basketball enough, DJ. You know when a shooter, especially if you're a shooter, you know when a shooter's thinking. It's kind of like when dancers perform, and you know that a certain dancer or on stage performer is going through the routine in their head, 5, 6, 7, 8, and you can see the steps on their face, in their body. They're executing it, but it's not fluid because they don't know it inherently. They don't have the comfortability to just go off of instinct and let the rhythm carry them. And I think in the second half, he just said whatever and then let it, and it just looked more fluid. It looked fluid to the point, and I want to know what you think about this, DJ. I didn't even notice the elevated release because he was letting it go quicker. I think the energy was finally transferring the way it should, given the tweak that he made.
Yeah, I thought it looked better in the second half. It definitely looked more fluid. So I'm in complete agreement with you. I do not think, and I thought I saw this sort of bandied about, I don't think he went into halftime and was like, all right, I'm going to change back to my old form, because that would just be that. I don't think that would be crazy to like sort of like bail on your new form that you probably worked all off season, and you're bailing on it 24 minutes in. But I do think that there was, to your point, more fluidity to the form, basically because it was just more like, he seemed like more in movement. He had the one mid-range shot and the little isolation against Horford. That shot has looked better for him even through the preseason. That one corner three that he made in the right corner, and then I think he made one in the left corner. Both those look better. The process is going to, the results are going to make the process look a little better if the results are going in and being positive. I think he's going to shoot fine. And if I had to, if you sort of pin me on is he going to be shoot his average or below? I think he's going to shoot his average. But I think there's probably more concern for me that he's going to shoot below his career norm based on the changes he has made. So that's I think that's sort of like my summation of where I am with this. It's not a code red. It's just like a code orange, like a mild, mild to moderate concern about where he's going to be as a shooter, because he's that important to where this team is going to ultimately go in the playoffs and beyond.
If your collision detection is going off, you're not bugging. You actually do have some concern. So DJ, I definitely feel you with that. All right. I'm done reading that damn chapter, DJ. Let's turn the page. We back home. MSG, New York City, the home of champions, the home of the WNBA champion, New York Liberty. Seafoam season is every season in this city. Shout out to the Liberty. Went down the Canyon of Heroes, brought New York its first basketball title in 51 years. And that just means that they've opened the heaven mouth for more New York sports prosperity to come. I love the home opener. I love the energy that's going to be in MSG. And we see the Indiana Pacers, DJ. The Pacers, they gave up 109 points to your Detroit Pistons in game one of the season. And that was a game that was a dogfight until the end. A literal dogfight until the end. Let me get into the super chats real quick, because Fargo had one that I think goes right into our analysis of this game. Shout out and thank you so much for the super chat, fam. Happy Friday. How are we going to slow down the Pacers? Specifically transition. How fast will the rookies be able to meaningfully contribute? So let's get into that. Let's get into the Pacers offense. What have you seen so far? I don't know if you tapped into their game, DJ. I watched a good portion of it too.
I did, yeah.
What did you see in their offense? What do you think is going to be a major concern? Is it going to be transition? Give me your quick breakdown. It doesn't have to be quick. Give me your breakdown. Sorry.
Sure. Yeah, you're good. I think transition obviously is a big piece of it. And I posted one clip from last year, game 7, Knicks make a bucket, and within 3 seconds, the Pacers have scored on the other end. It's just, they are the best team in recent memory at firing up the court after a make. They are so good at it. And because it's Siakam as such a great transition player, and because they're at times he's cross-matched and his man is crashing the glass, it frees him up for that transition attack. So you really have to be on, your floor balance is going to be huge in this game. That's one way you can sort of slow their transition game down. And then the other part of it, and this is where we're all, as we learn about what this Knicks team is ultimately going to be and how they're going to need to play, offensive rebounding is just not going to be the bellwether need to dominate aspect that it was in previous years. So if that is the case, then potentially that could allow you to have a better floor balance if you're not crashing 2-3 guys to try to generate offensive rebounds. So that is one thing to maybe look at and say, this new style of offense and Knicks roster might be more conducive to slowing down the Pacers transition game, which is just lethal. But again, it's not just the transition, which is like the fast breaking and getting up and down. It's just the pace they play with. And another team, and this is where it's a tough early season game in second opponent, where you have a team that has got a lot of continuity in the Pacers and a Knicks team that is still trying to find it on the defensive end. Mm-hmm. Even when the Knicks were there at their best defensively last season with Anunoby in the playoffs, there was a lot of struggles to slow that Pacers team down before OG got hurt. Obviously, when he was injured, the wheels fell off. But they test you and they strain you in ways that no other team in the NBA can, based on how quick and how fast they play and how well conditioned they are and all those things. It's a massive challenge. This is one of the best offensive teams in the history of the NBA. Like they are no joke. They are going to be a monster to play against tonight, and it's going to require the Knicks to clean up almost all of the sort of overhelping miscommunication stuff that was evident in the Boston game to have a chance to slow this offense down and then score enough to pull out a victory.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm gonna take this off. Thank you so much, Fargo. I know a lot of Pacers fans and people were clamoring for Ben Mathurin and saying like if he was here, there would be a different series. And he had a great game. He had a great game against the Pistons. 19.6 rebounds in 28 minutes, and he's essentially their sixth man, one of their first off the bench. Some of the things that are note for those of you who didn't tap into Pistons, I'll give you the quick rundown. Only hit about 9 threes, shot 29% from three, but they hit the threes that matter down the stretch. I'll say that, especially Hallie hit one, a dagger to close out that game. Beat the Pistons, won on the rebounding end, had more defensive rebounds, but they got beat up on the offensive glass a little bit. 32 assists. So they're still getting off their assists, still getting their passing on. And this is 32 assists with Hallie only having 4. Siakam had 9 assists in that game, which is just that. I feel like that's one of those that to me is like a day one NBA thing. It's like Siakam getting the 9 assists off when you get the random parlay, the 20,000 to 1 parlay that hits because everybody's acting unusual. One thing that I did notice about them is that they still give you all them points. The Pacers will still give you up points if you ask, they will oblige. They are not stopping anybody. Their defense hasn't improved. The Pistons were getting whatever they wanted. They just didn't really. They kind of shot equally, and I think the Pacers were able to pull away because their offense is so good. But this has the potential to be a high scoring game, and that kind of goes into one of my concerns for the Knicks just in their makeup. We talk about the identity and are they a finesse team? Are they a grit team? What their identity is going to be. I kind of don't want them. I mean, not even say kind of. I don't want them to become a variant of the Pacers where they're relying on outscoring the opposition to win. There has to be some type of defensive intensity, especially when you've paid the price that you paid for Bridges and OG. Mm-hmm. If you paid all of that to become a run and gun team, then you have the wrong wings on your squad, right? And I do think that the defense I expect, I think they put a way better defensive effort because they've had a few days. And once again, I don't think anything can be worse than what happened offensively to you. That what happened in Boston. I expect Bridges to guard Hallie. I expect OG to guard Siakam. Cat to guard Miles Turner. We'll probably have JB on Nembhard again. Yep. Right. And then Hart on Nesmith. Yeah, and I think that's a good matchup because Miles Turner isn't going to be breaking down anybody off the dribble. They're going to have to worry about his 3-point shooting, but then you're going to have to worry about that on the other end too. And pulling him out of the paint may allow for Hart to go crazy on the offensive boards. Even better than that, this is a way to get a measure of revenge on the team that eliminated you in the postseason. So I expect, although Bridges wasn't here for that, although Cat wasn't here for that, we have a lot of players that were. So I expect them to definitely dial up the intensity on them. The other thing, DJ, that I definitely want you to chime in on is the bench play. Because I think the Knicks went from having a stronger bench than the Pacers to now it being a plus on Indiana's side. You got McConnell coming off the bench. Their depth has been ridiculous. McConnell, Obi, Mathurin, right? I forgot my guy with the goggles isn't on their squad. I think he went to Memphis.
Jarris Walker.
Yeah.
And, the center thing is good. Weissman unfortunately tore his Achilles.
He was cooking too.
He
He was
was.
cooking too.
He had
He's
a
having a great game.
good preseason too. He was having a kind of a revenge game against his old
Yeah.
Pistons. That one, I mean, just as a human being, that was a tough one to see. A guy that just hasn't had many breaks.
Mm-hmm.
But they're deep, to your point, right? And the Knicks right now, that is certainly a weak spot for them. They might have. We saw Deuce perform offensively, at least at a high level against Boston. If you want to tell me like he's going to be in the top 5 and 6 man of the year voting, like I would buy that right now. I think he's that good. But then beyond that, there's just a lot of Sims has not distinguished himself even through the preseason and not against Boston. Campaign, a serviceable backup point guard, but certainly not much more than that. And then Dadier, who's at this point, is a massive question mark. Maybe he surprises and he can stretch the floor a little bit and show some of those off-ball skills that he did in the preseason and not, hurt you too much on the defensive end. But it's going to require heavy minutes from the starters, and then McBride having a big night. And then just against the Pacers, are you conditioned enough physically to be able to handle 35, 36 minutes for your starters based on the amount of movement and space that the Pacers put you in? That's to me a pretty big question, because the Knicks just they don't have the depth right now to really go 10 deep, or 9 deep in a way that is not spot minutes for Dadier. So it's a big question mark. With that said, to your point about the Pacers, being a poor defensive team, in the preseason, they didn't really show anything in terms of improving in that area coming into this year. And you talked about that Detroit game, Detroit getting to where they wanted to go and just not having enough at the end. This should be a get right game for the Knicks offense in terms of, I would assume Turner will be guarding Cat, so he could really tap into the 2-man game. And that was lethal for the Knicks in the preseason. I expect that to be one of the better 2-man actions in the NBA, Cat and Brunson. And then quickly on the defensive side, I agree with you 100% that we should see Bridges guard Halliburton. And to me, of all the things that sort of went on in the playoff series, the big thing that was just clamoring for is a point of attack defender on Halliburton that can consistently slow him down. And this was a Halliburton that was compromised with his back injury, but still he was able to get, for the most part, to his spots and where he wanted to go. Probably wasn't as aggressive as he needed to be in terms of scoring the ball. But when they traded Quentin Grimes, that was a major missing piece to the puzzle for the Knicks. Bridges was brought in large part to be able to handle those particular matchups. Allow OG to guard the better, bigger, stronger wing forward. That's the Siakam matchup. But you need someone to slow down Halliburton. I think Bridges is as equipped as any wing in the NBA to do that. And if you could slow Halliburton down, you're in large part slowing down this offense.
Casual Friday Live. We're talking home opener, Knicks Pacers tonight in the Garden. Use the hashtag KFS in the chat if you want to get your comments up here. We will answer your questions. You can send a super chat if you are so inclined. We will definitely get that up there as well. Who do you think? And shout out to y'all. Thank you so much for the info. Jalen Smith went to the Bulls. That's who I was thinking of. My guy, Young Kareem. But Young Kareem with the goggles went to the Bulls. But yeah, even with that, they still have a pretty robust bench. So that's something that I'm looking at. DJ, who do you think? Which rookie do you think is the most vital to be a major contributor to the Knicks this season in order to bolster their bench?
Ooh, that's a good question. So I think right now, Achua coming back healthy, he's getting the backup center minutes. So I think while Hawk Purdy he has shown some positive traits and had a solid preseason at times, I just don't know if the minutes or the opportunity is going to be there with Achua healthy. So to me, it comes down to Dadier or Kolek. Right now, I think I would probably lean Kolek, because I think at this point I can bank on him running a competent NBA offense. And I think his shooting has certainly from my eye and from some of the evidence and small samples, right? So again, we have to kind of put the caveat there. I think his shooting looks improved based on where it was coming out of college. The defensive end is going to be a struggle. It's a struggle for most rookies, especially, undersized point guards. But I think he can come in tomorrow or tonight and run a competent NBA offense. I just don't know if Dadier at 19 is at the level defensively where you can get away with him in large stretches. I think on the shooting side, he looks improved, and he really has some IQ stuff on the offensive end in terms of his cutting and his movement that is really kind of beyond his years. And maybe that's just like the European, basketball training of like movement and spacing and knowing angles and cutting, all those things. He really at 19 seems to have a lot of those traits. But I think Kolek right now is the one, if I was to pick one that has the better likelihood to be a member of this rotation long-term, I think he would be the one. What do you think?
I agree with that. If I was doing betting odds, I would say Kolek would definitely be the favorite. He'd probably be like minus 200, and Dadier would be like my 5-1, 10-1 odds, right? But I inhale a whole atmosphere full of hopium when it comes to Dadier, because I just see his ceiling, man. His ceiling is sky high. Yeah, he's 19. He's a little frail. Young guys don't really come into the league on average as lockdown defenders unless they're kind of like a Ryan Dunn, which that was your calling card, and you come in with that and it translates. But this dude, his offensive instincts, man, I'm just super high on it. Like the way he's able to relocate. This is the stuff that you can teach, but when you have it instinctually, it can make you an even better player quicker, because now you got all the little things naturally. So now you can work on the fundamentals and then raise your bar. This is the first time I felt secure in the point guard position for the Knicks in a long time, because they have the depth now. We have Brunson, they have Payne, they have Kolek, right? And Brunson, along with another handful of superstars in the league, where you're at DEFCON 1 if they go out, right? Like if Ant Edwards go out, Minnesota, we're screwed. If Bron or AD goes out, you're probably screwed. If Ja goes out, we saw what happened with Memphis when the whole house of cards fell, right? But I think that extra wing position, that extra 2-3 position to have, you can give OG and Mikal some more rest, which is something that we're monitoring throughout the course of the season. And I just think if this dude, there's a reason why he said, I'm not trying to go to the G League. I'm coming over here. I want to be on the roster. Like, I came over here to play, first round pick. There's something about him. And I think playing on that French national team, being around those guys, it definitely elevates your game, because you're around professionals. You're around people who wanted to win. Like I was on record. I wanted the Knicks to go after Yabusele if the price was right, because that dude, that's a dog. Like I feel like would have fit in with the 23-24 Knicks mentality. Sure. And him like Payne are not shy about putting up shots. But I do think, to your point, Kolek is the sure thing. He's the steady thing. He's somebody who could be that. And I know he doesn't like it's a reductive comparison, but just in terms of the energy they bring off the bench, what TJ McConnell was for the Pacers, to where he comes in and you're like, all right, whatever. And then he's killing you. And he's steady and he's stable, and you give people rest, and he's able to run the offense, able to give you meaningful minutes. I think Kolek is there. I'm probably looking a couple of years in the future with Dadier, but I do feel like, man, I wish he had the size Sims put on. You know? Yeah.
Well, shout out Chris Persianen, shout out KFS Draft Class. Chris was a guest on this show, Casual Friday. Yeah, so he just put in the chat. Right now he goes with Huck Porty year long. He's going Dadier for that fit right now for the rookies to contribute to this team. I'll buy it, man. I mean, you sold me on the Dadier thing. A lot of those things, I'm seeing as well. He is a unique offensive. He's got a unique offensive skill set for where a 19-year-old typically is. And to me, like shooting off the catch, like right now, I feel like at least from the eye test, like that thing looks clean, and he's got the size to get it off.
Talk about form.
Yeah, no, it's a really good looking shot. It looks better to me, at least than he was in summer league. I don't know how many changes he's actually made. I haven't done the side-by-side thing, but it looks good. And, there's defense is just going to be an issue for all these guys. Maybe a guy like Dadier, who's got nice positional size, maybe it's not as critically damaging as it would for a guy like Kolek, who's a little bit smaller. But, to have three guys that were sort of like arguing about that, not arguing, but like debating that were drafted where they were drafted. I mean, it speaks to where this, Knicks front office is in terms of identifying talent in spots that you typically don't necessarily get guys that can come in and contribute right away.
And Chris, that is a beautiful dog, bro. That's 10 out of 10, 13 out of 10. Great dog. Excellent dog in your profile picture.
I agree.
All right. Mr. Claudio chimes in. The background Emmy continues to be the greatest flex. Like I said, my wife said I need to put it up and be proud of it, and don't let it become a doorstop. So it is there, and it's also a reminder of where I've been and where I can go and where we can go as a man. So we definitely keep going with that. As we try to get in, if y'all got any last questions before we wrap up, definitely get them in. Y'all got about a few minutes, but DJ, what excites you the most about home openers as opposed to starting the season on the road?
Just the crowd. It's MSG is just ever since the 22-23 season, I feel like the crowd itself has just been like setting the bar higher and higher in terms of like how loud and how just ferocious they have gotten. I was in the building for game 3 against Cleveland, not this past year, but 2 years ago. And it was probably the loudest building I'd ever been in my life. The crowds last year were amazing. And I just feel like the MSG fan base, the New York Knicks fan base, is just at a level right now with excitement and hope that it's manifesting in how they can just have the amount of volume they can generate in that building, the best building in all of sports. So just being back at MSG with that crowd, Towns and Bridges and all those guys coming in and playing in front of the fans for the first time in a regular season game like that, all positive vibes, and looking forward to just seeing that and seeing if the team can feed off that and get out in transition. Like that was one of the things that I missed against Boston. One, because they weren't getting many stops, but like they need to have more pace. Josh Hart's got to be integral in doing that, grabbing, going, trying to create threes, create opportunities for himself, just get the crowd moving and generating some life and feeding off that. So that, I guess, the vibes, the crowd, the atmosphere, that's the thing I'm looking forward to the most.
Yeah, I love everything that you said, and it's just a different energy. I feel like the NBA season truly starts when the Knicks play a home game in Madison Square Garden, because then we're officially tapped in as a fan base, and now we can get the festivities begin. I'm predicting a big game for Cat, because I know he still watches them Timberwolves games. I saw him with Jordan at the concert, the Billie Eilish concert, still watching preseason. So I know he still got all his alerts on. He still watched. So he saw Julius.
He got
33. What would he drop? 33, 5 and 4. Listen,
yeah.
I don't know what the Sacramento Kings and Domantas Sabonis did to that man, but every time he sees the Kings, he devours them, completely destroys them. It's uncanny. It's like that's the John Wick for Sacramento. That's their John Wick is Julius Randle. He killed.
Even the year 21-22 where Julius just didn't have it. I think that was when he scored 46 in Sacramento and just hit like every three. You're right. There's something about the bonus in that team,
that Sacramento air, man. He sees them coming. It's like, boy, that's like one of those old school, like old NBA where you try to sign him when he's a free agent because you're like, I'm tired of him killing us. Yeah. You do this 41 times in our building.
Right.
DJ Ace. Casual Friday has been better by your presence, my brother. Please tell the people where they can find you and consume all the content that you put out.
Man, just find me on X, Twitter/X, DJ Ace NBA. All my stuff's going to be on there. I got the YouTube thing that I'll try to get rolling out soon as well. But you'll see plenty of me on the KFS airwaves. we'll be doing weekly KFS film sessions. So me, Benji Ritholtz, we're going to be like tag teaming that. So every week, one of us will be on here trying to break down what we're seeing, what we're observing of this team with film, and trying to really get into the nitty gritty of things. So just be on the lookout for all that. I did my first one a couple of days ago, so you can find that on the KFS YouTube channel. So give that a little check out and comment, and I'll respond back if you have any questions. But just excited to get this season really in the full flux. Opening night, MSG, couldn't be any better, man. Thank you for having me.
Of course. When you say YouTube thing, you mean your own channel, or are you talking about what you do for KFS?
My own. So if you go to the Craft NBA, so that's my own thing. Full disclosure, I haven't updated that in a while because I've been so busy doing the Knicks stuff, but I'm going to start getting more of the kind of all NBA content popping on there. So we'll see. It's a lot going on. 2 young kids, times of the essence. I want to be able to do stuff like this with you. So, I mean, there's just only so much time in the day. I have a lot of ideas, just not a lot of time to execute all of them, but you'll see plenty of me here at the Knicks Film School. This is going to be a big Knicks year, and I'm just happy to be a part of this group to really cover them in a way that is, I think, providing a lot of value for fans out there.
And as a new parent, bro, I felt everything that you just said spiritually. And in my parent energy, I always tell people, like, support what you do. What you do isn't little, it is major. Everything you do is major. So I want to make sure that people know where they can find you. That I'm smarter every time I tap into DJ's film breakdowns. Like, even before we started doing the KFS thing together, like, I was following you for a minute and seeing you break down, and now I'm able to read the game. I feel like Neo when all he saw was zeros and ones on the black screen. That's how I can see film now, because we have a great team here who's able to break down film and let you know the why behind the what. So that's DJ Ace, NBA on X, DJ Zullo. I'm Jeff Johnson. This was Casual Friday Live. You catch us every Friday during the NBA season, where we're talking Knicks from the week before and Knicks from the weeks ahead. All right, y'all. Thank y'all for tapping in. Follow, like, comment, subscribe. All of the call to actions, you see the banner, you see the ticker tape. Read it, apply it, and help us grow so that we can give you much more quality Knicks content. For DJ, I'm Jeff. See you next Friday, and go Knicks.